Welcome to the Cross Creek Podcast, a podcast for you because God is for you. Prayer can feel hard when life feels heavy. Sometimes we're tired, anxious, overwhelmed, disappointed, or moving so fast inside that we don't even know what we need, let alone what to say to God. This week, we begin our series, When You Don't Know What to Pray, by looking at how one familiar prayer can help us bring our real lives to God and find our way back to the care, peace, and presence of Jesus, the Good Shepherd. So, let's talk about it together. So, what comes to mind when you hear the word prayer? For some of us, prayer feels like comfort and connection. It comes naturally, and it's been part of our lives for a long time. But maybe for others, prayer can feel awkward, boring, confusing, or intimidating. Maybe it's even been tainted by past church experiences. And for a lot of us, even if we do believe in prayer, there are times when we just don't know what to pray. Not because we don't care, because we don't believe, but because we're tired and anxious or overwhelmed, maybe disappointed with life, others, maybe even God. Or because our minds are moving so fast we can't even name what we need. That's why today we're starting a series called When You Don't Know What to Pray. And right away, I want to say, if prayer feels weird to you, you're not alone. If you're not sure if you're doing it right, you're not alone. If you've ever wondered whether God is listening, you're not alone. And if you ever sat down to pray and thought, I don't even know what to say, you're definitely not alone. Now, the good news is, this isn't just a modern 21st century problem. I think it's part of the human experience. And for thousands of years, the Psalms have been the songbook and the prayer book of God's people. They give us words when we don't have the words. Words for joy and grief, anger, fear, doubt, trust, exhaustion, confession, hope, and basically everything in between. The Psalms remind us that prayer isn't about impressing God with perfect words. They give us permission to pray without pretending. They show us that if you can feel it, you can pray it. So today, I want to start with probably the most famous psalm, Psalm 23. Maybe you've heard it at funerals. Maybe you or your grandma has this psalm in a frame on a wall somewhere. But I'm going to challenge us to look at this prayer through different eyes. Not just as a beautiful poem or an ideal vision of life, but as a prayer for one of the most common conditions of the human soul, tiredness. Not just physical tiredness, soul tiredness. The kind that comes from being led by anxiety, hurry, fear, comparison, and shame for way too long. And all of us are being led by something, if you think about it, shaping what we fear, what we chase, what we trust, and who are we becoming. So the question isn't whether you have a shepherd. The question is whether your shepherd is giving you life. And that's exactly where this prayer begins. Psalm 23:1. The Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need. The Lord is my shepherd. And most of us would probably nod and agree, even if we're not like the church type, and say, yeah, of course, yeah, sure he is. I mean, who would actually say something terrible like, anxiety is my shepherd, or hurry is my shepherd, or comparison or my past, my shame, my hurts are my shepherds? But if we're truly honest, what is leading our choices, our thinking, and our lives the most? See, the shepherd of anxiety says, you don't have enough. You aren't enough. So worry. It keeps whispering that you're missing something. You don't have enough time, enough money, enough control, enough security. And before long, those whispers start leading our thoughts, our choices, and our lives. So the psalmist reminds us that we might not always have everything we want, but when the Lord is my shepherd, I have all that I need. Because he's leading me, I can trust his enough. So anxiety says, you don't have enough. The shepherd says, in me, you have what you need. So when you feel anxiety trying to shepherd your heart and your mind, you don't have to come up with some impressive prayer. You can simply pray Psalm 23. Lord, be my shepherd. Teach me to trust your enough. Remind me that I may not have everything I want, but in you, I have what I need. But our culture tells us that if we aren't constantly in motion, we'll fall behind. Our kids won't have the right experiences, and we won't get ahead, or we won't have or be enough. And so the shepherd of hurry says, don't stop, don't rest. And that's a terrible shepherd that only leads us to exhaustion, burnout, and disconnected relationships. And so the psalmist shows us a better shepherd in Psalm 23, 2 and 3. He lets me rest in green meadows. He leads me beside peaceful streams. He renews my strength. He guides me along right paths, bringing honor to his name. And I love that wording. He lets me rest. Like in a world of hurry, God lets me rest. He purposely and lovingly leads me to peaceful streams. And he renews my strength, not just my body, but the deepest part of me. See, this isn't just about God giving us a nice day once in a while. It's about God caring for and refreshing the deepest parts of us. See, hurry always promises rest later. Once you get ahead, once the kids are settled, once the bills are paid, once life slows down. But hurry never actually leads us to rest. It only keeps moving the finish line. But the true shepherd lets us rest and renews our souls in the middle of our everyday lives. So when hurry is trying to shepherd your soul, Psalm 23 gives us a prayer. You can say, Lord, lead me beside quiet waters. Restore my soul. Teach me to receive rest as a gift, not something I have to earn after everything else is done. So hurry says rest comes later. The shepherd says rest starts here. But, let's not be naive. Not every day is peaceful, is it? Not every day is fun. Some days are horrible and dark. And it's in those times that the shepherd of fear tries to take the lead. It says you're alone. God might be out there somewhere, but he's definitely not with you. But the psalmist sees beyond those lies in verse 4. Even when I walk through the darkest valley, I will not be afraid, for you are close beside me. Your rod and your staff protect and comfort me. Now, did you see the shift there? It's so subtle that I've actually missed it most of my life. The psalmist began this psalm by talking about God as my shepherd, right? He lets me rest. He leads me. He renews me. He guides me. But in the darkest valley, something changes. He stops talking about God and he begins talking to God. He says, you are with me. See, pain has a way of making prayer more personal, doesn't it? But in hard times and dark days, it's easy to think God has left us or stopped caring. And fear tries to shepherd us by whispering that darkness means we've been abandoned. And before long, fear starts leading us into panic and despair. But the truth is, sometimes when life is at its darkest, God's nearness becomes the clearest. And he brings his rod and his staff with him. The rod, a club to fend off the wolves and predators. The staff to pull us out of pits and keep us on safe paths. See, God doesn't always keep us out of the valley, but he doesn't leave us in the valley. And in the darkest places, his nearness often becomes more personal and more deeply experienced. So when fear is trying to shepherd your soul, you may not have a long prayer. You may not even have words for everything you're feeling. But I think Psalm 23 gives us enough. We can say, you are with me. You are close beside me. Protect me. Comfort me. Help me take the next step. But even when we do begin to receive God's peace, there's another terrible shepherd that loves to steal that peace. Comparison. Comparison teaches us to measure our worth by who approves of us, who notices us, who celebrates us, and who seems to be doing better than us. But the psalmist shows us that the true shepherd gives us a better place to stand. Verse 5. You prepare a feast for me in the presence of my enemies. You honor me by anointing my head with oil. My cup overflows with blessings. See, the comparison shepherd says, you only matter if people approve of you. You are only worth what other people say you are worth. But God says, you matter even when no one is clapping, because you're mine. You have worth because I have made you worthy. See, you don't have to fight for a seat God has already given you. So when comparison is trying to shepherd your soul, you can pray, God, prepare the table you want for me. Free me from needing everyone else's approval. Remind me that I don't have to fight for a seat you've already given me. Now, here's the thing, though. We don't always feel worthy, do we? We don't always feel like we deserve his blessing and care. We've messed up so much that we don't deserve an overflowing cup. And so the shepherd of shame says, your past will always define you. You are what you did. And all that baggage is just going to keep pushing you further and further away from God. But the psalmist shows us it's actually the complete opposite. Verse 6. Surely your goodness and unfailing love will pursue me all the days of my life, and I will live in the house of the Lord forever. Now, did you notice what he didn't say there? He didn't say, I can work hard enough to earn your love, or if I clean up, I might find your love. No. He says, your goodness and unfailing love are pursuing or chasing after me. Like this love is unfailing. It doesn't end. It doesn't relent. It doesn't get distracted. It doesn't get bored. It doesn't let go. So shame says your baggage is dragging you away from God. But the psalmist tells us God's goodness and love are chasing you down. Your past may be loud, but it's not faster than the love of God. I know you might be thinking or saying, John, you don't know what I've done. You don't know what I didn't do. You don't know where I come from or what I'm going through. And yeah, of course, you're right, I don't. But you know what I do know? I know what I've done. I know what I've failed to do. I know the paths I've tried to run down, and I know through it all, God's goodness and love have been nipping at my heels the entire time. So when shame tries to shepherd your soul, you can have a better prayer. You can say, Lord, let your goodness and love chase down the parts of me that still want to hide. Remind me that my past may be part of my story, but it does not get to be my shepherd. Bring me home again. Now, all that sounds nice, right? Great. Makes us warm and squishy maybe, but how is this any more than just wishful thinking? Well, because one day Jesus was teaching, and he said this in John 10, 10 and 11. The thief's purpose is to steal and kill and destroy. My purpose is to give them a rich and satisfying life. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd sacrifices his life for the sheep. See, Jesus didn't just say things like, well, God cares about you. No, he was and is God's care for us in the flesh. He showed us what God's true love looks like. Love that spent itself for the good of others. Love that ultimately laid down his life, walked through the actual valley of death, and rose again to lead us into true life. The Good Shepherd didn't just say he loved us. He demonstrated it, lived it, died, and rose again to prove his love is unfailing. To show that no matter who you are, where you're from, or what you've done, he is pursuing you at every turn. Not to shame you, not to crush you, and not to control you, but to bring you home. To show you how deeply you are loved, and to show you how much you are worth to him. So when the bad shepherds of anxiety, hurry, fear, comparison, and shame start calling your name, when you are soul tired, overwhelmed, and you don't know what to pray, remind yourself who the true good shepherd is. Maybe for the first time. See, he is inviting everyone to be part of his flock, to come under his love, his care, and his guidance. And if you're ready to trust the good shepherd, again, maybe for the first time, you don't need perfect words. You can simply tell him, say something like, Jesus, I want to be yours. I want to receive your love. I want to learn to trust your voice. Lead me. And whether maybe you told him that for the first time right now, or you've been in his flock for years, let me invite you this week to remember who the Good Shepherd is, not as a religious assignment, not as something to check off, but as a way of letting the Good Shepherd speak louder than those terrible shepherds. So here's my invitation. Read and pray Psalm 23 slowly once a day this week. Especially that first line, the Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need. And when you don't know what to pray, borrow the words of Psalm 23 until they become your own. So each day, also, ask yourself, what has been trying to shepherd my soul today? And then pray the line you need most. If it's anxiety, Lord, teach me to trust you're enough. If it's hurry, restore my soul. If it's fear, you are with me. If it's comparison, free me from needing everyone's approval. If it's shame, let your goodness and love bring me home again. So imagine if we became this kind of people. Not people who always know exactly what to say, or people who have prayer all figured out, and not people who pretend we're never tired, anxious, afraid, hurried, insecure, or ashamed. But people who know where to bring all of that, who keep learning to say, the Lord is my shepherd. Like, what would that do to our choices if anxiety weren't the loudest shepherd in the room? What would happen in our families if hurry didn't get to decide what mattered most? What would happen in our lives if fear didn't get the final word? Or what would happen in our relationships if comparison lost its grip? And what would happen in our hearts if shame was no longer allowed to lead us away from God? See, that kind of community would be different. It would be the kind of community a tired world is desperate to find. So this week, when you don't know what to pray, don't give up on prayer. Borrow the words of Psalm 23. Let them become your words. And let the Good Shepherd lead you back to the life your soul has been looking for. So when you don't know what to pray, start with the Shepherd.